Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining me for another edition of Raising Vibration Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Raven, and tonight I have the astonishing author and a famous past life regression therapist, right? That's a past life, is that what you call a therapist? Past life regression therapist?
That's right.
Yeah, so Joanne, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, I have been a big fan of yours since I went to a symposium last year, and I had a couple of your friends on this podcast, and I just had to reach out and meet you. So it is such a pleasure. And I would like for everyone to hear your background story, how you got into all of this.
Okay, great. Let's see. In the land far, far away, uh, uh, I grew up in Chicago. I live in Virginia now, and I Catholic family, and that, of course, Catholicism not believing in reincarnation. But as a child, I had a lot of questions. Things just didn't seem right to me. Some of the things that I was being taught. How can it be that if you ate meat on Friday and then you got hit by a car, you'd go straight to hell? I didn't understand this concept. So as a teenager, I started reading books about Edgar Cayce, who's has then became my spiritual mentor, my teacher. Mr. Cayce, for those of your listeners who don't know, is like the most renowned psychic of the 20th century. He passed in 1945, but he left us 14,000 readings. And he was way ahead of his time. 12,000 of those readings were health readings, 2,000 were life readings. And in the life readings, he got into reincarnation. So as a teenager, I read about him. I was reading books by Jess Stern and Ruth Montgomery, and the whole concept of reincarnation really made a lot of sense to me. And then I sort of, forgot about it, got married, had a family, did the whole suburban thing. And then in 1987, Shirley MacLaine's book Out on a Limb was made into a miniseries. I never forget this. It was January 1987. It was on ABC for 2 nights. And,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I was like, oh my, it just, when she was talking about reincarnation, it like lit a fuse in me. It was like, oh, I remember being so interested in that when I was a teenager. So at that point forward, I became really interested in pursuing this as a career. And so that same year, I joined the A.R.E, which is Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment. I became involved with the Chicago A.R.E team called the Heartland Region, and we were bringing in a lot of speakers. Well, because my interest was in past lives, and I'm primarily a researcher, so I started my own past life research organization called Plexus, uh, which stood for Past Life Exploration, Understanding, and Sharing. And I had monthly meetings, and I would bring in speakers as well. So if a past life related speaker would come to the A.R.E, I would bring them into Plexus. So I became friends with many of the past life therapists that I brought in, many of the authors, people on the leading edge of reincarnation research. And one of them in particular, we went out to dinner and he said, Joanne, you know more about reincarnation than 98% of the therapists that are out there. Why aren't you doing it? And I said, no, I'm a writer. I'm not a therapist. But he kept up. He kept on me and on me and on me. And finally I said, okay, alrighty. So I got my certified hypnotherapy certificate, I guess you'd call it. I studied hypnosis. I worked with Dr. Irene Hickman, who is the one of the pioneers in hypnotherapy. And then later on in 2006, I think it was, I decided that I wanted to get a master's degree, and the A.R.E's Atlantic University was offering a degree in transpersonal studies, which is now called transpersonal psychology. So I went through that course for 3 years, got my master's, also got a spiritual mentor certification. And so my thesis was on soul writing, which is a written form of meditation. Edgar Cayce called it inspirational writing. And that was my first book. And I have written a total of 5 books, esoteric books. I have another one that's not an esoteric book. And I have been actively still involved with A.R.E all these years. And I have done quite a few conferences and radio programs and podcasts. And I do regressions. I still do a lot of research, but
Mhm.
I do offer regressions to individual clients. They could book it right online. I do them by Zoom. So
Oh, good.
doing them globally now. I have clients from all over the world that I'm working with, and it's such a humbling experience for me. And I have really been grateful in a way for the for Zoom and for all of these online capabilities. Even though I sometimes get a little intimidated by them, but still, being able to do a conference that's being held in Japan, or doing a client that's somewhere in Australia. I mean, it's just fabulous that it's got this global reach now. So I'm very, very thrilled with the way things have been expanding to be more inclusive to everyone around the world.
So you just mentioned something about transpersonal studies. Can you dive into that for some of us that doesn't really understand what that terminology means?
Yeah, it's like everything that's like above and beyond you that it's a combination in a way of sociology and archaeology and anthropology and psychology. I say that sociology, yeah. So it's basically a lot of it is involved with esoteric studies, so things of a spiritual nature, of a higher nature. And I know it's difficult to explain because to me it's sort of intangible.
Mhm.
It's hard to just put words to it. Even though I'm a writer, you would think I'd have words. But yeah, so I mean, I took courses on dreams, on near-death experiences, a lot of them on creative writing in an altered state of consciousness. It's just a wonderful, wonderful variety of courses, and I think those 3 years that I spent at Atlantic University, it was all done online, by the way. It was all distance learning,
Oh, wow.
and it was fabulous. It literally saved my life in many ways. I'd often heard people say that when they were in a really dark place, that they would ask for guidance, and suddenly a book would like drop from a bookshelf, and
Mhm.
there it was, and then there's the answer right in the book. That happened for a lot of people with Edgar Cayce. That's how they found out about Cayce. The book just kind of fell in front of them. Um, so for me, that was the case too, because in 2006, I lost my last parent, and other things were going wrong, and I didn't know what quite to do with myself. I had a almost fatal automobile accident in 2001, and I didn't realize it at the time, but that was a near death experience for me.
Wow.
Because for the next 3 years, I gave up everything. I had no interest at all in esoteric studies. I had no interest in metaphysics. I gave away all of my books, which I have since regretted. You see behind me, I've been getting them back again. Uh, all of my friends that were involved in anything metaphysical went by the wayside. It was a real dark time. And then 3 years to the date of that accident, I woke up and I was back to being me. So then now all of a sudden I'm going, well, where are my books? And I had disbanded my past life organization. I had quit the A.R.E. I mean, it was just a weird time. And then I'm back and I'm like, well, I don't understand what happened. It took me another 3 years before I figured out what happened. And PMH Atwater, who is like one of the experts on near-death experiences. If you ever want a really great guest for your show, you should talk to her. She lives here in Charlottesville.
Okay.
She one of her books was required reading for one of the last course I was taking at Atlantic University, and it was on near-death experience. And sure enough, in the book, it described everything that I was going through, and I thought, oh, good, then I'm not losing my mind. So anyway, I got my degree from Atlantic University and just went full steam ahead with the work that I was doing. I do a lot of research projects. All of my books are based on research projects, and so I started to do that and started to do more and more books that way, and just building up a clientele. So it's just been a really rewarding and satisfying experience because so many people have been helped. Past life work is a very powerful tool for transformation, and adding the soul writing to it makes it even more so. So I'm very, very thrilled with being able to share that with a global audience now.
That I know. I'm so happy for you on that because that makes a world of difference, and it's making our community, where it was outreached and hard to contain. It's like we're all one together now with the internet. Thank God that happened, and we got connected that way.
It was one of the positives out of COVID, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yes.
Because before that, I never would have thought to do a regression on Zoom. And then one of the past life regression therapists that I really admire told me, he said, I've been doing them on Zoom for a long time. I said, well, how do you do that when you don't have a person in front of you? And he said, oh, it's better because they're in their own home. They're relaxed. They don't have to get in the car to go to a place that they don't know where they're going. And he's right. I actually have more success with the Zoom sessions than I did with some of the ones in person. So, you know, I've learned not to judge something I don't understand, and I just trust in the universe that they're guiding me to do the things the way in the best possible way.
So, can you tell me exactly what past life regression is for people that are tuning in and they've never had it done?
Sure. A past life regression uses hypnosis or guided imagery to get you to be in a very relaxed state. You just do some deep breathing, some relaxation. And then uh, you go to a place where your conscious mind recedes. Your subconscious mind comes forward, and all of your past life memories are contained in your soul. So you can bring those forward. When I work with people, I ask spirit to take them to the past life that's most impacting them right now.
Hmm.
So you've had hundreds of past lives. You're not working on all of them at once. You chose to work on a specific lifetime. It could even have been 1,000 years ago. Um, but now is the right time, the right place, the right parents, the right socioeconomic background. The environment was perfect to work on whatever issue you didn't quite finish in that previous lifetime. So they go back and revisit that life, and we find out what they look like, were they male or female, how old were they, where on the planet were they, what year was it, and then we get a significant event that happened in that life that was so important it made an imprint on their soul and
Hmm.
brought it in with them into this life to work on it. So some people that are dealing with abandonment issues or approval issues or relationship issues or even health uh, issues. I did a whole study on whether a chronic condition in this life can be traced to a previous lifetime. And I did 50 volunteers came in. They had a wide range of chronic conditions, arthritis, heart disease, obesity, joint problems. Some of them had addiction issues with alcohol or substance abuse. Um, and uh, diabetes was another one. And
Mhm.
we went back to a life in which that first came up, and then brought them, and about 30 something percent of those in my study had a spontaneous healing just by knowing the origin of that physical condition. And I did that study because I went to an A.R.E conference on a medical intuition, and Dr. Norm Shealy, who was a medical doctor, was the speaker, and he said the first thing he said when he got on stage was, um, all chronic conditions are past life related. And I thought, whoa, whoa. I didn't
Ah,
think I'd ever hear a medical doctor say that, but that got me curious, and so I devised a whole research program to find that out. So that's basically what it is. You go back to another lifetime that you had in another time, another place, to find out the origin of the issues that you're dealing with now. And then when we bring them forward, you're able to heal them or release them or apply them, integrate them into who you are now. So it changes your perspective on your life because you know where this is coming from. So it's very powerful.
yeah. So you would say the purpose of getting a reincarnation then is to try to help heal something in this lifetime?
Exactly. Exactly. Like, are you dealing with something in this life and you don't really know where its origin is? Like, why am I dealing with this?
Mhm.
It's got to have, there's got to be a reason for it. And so we go back to find out where it originated. If you're dealing with abandonment issues in this life, it could have been that you abandoned somebody in a prior life. So it's all about karma. Karma is cause and effect. So it's like if you're always trying to balance uh, your soul's journey, and so it's like Earth is a school,
Mhm.
and you come here with your little book bag and your curriculum. Okay, in this life, I'm going to work on X, Y, and Z. So you come in knowing you're going to work on that, and then members of your soul family are going to come in with you, and they're going to help you with all of that, depending on what role they play. So if it is abandonment, for instance, you could some members of your soul family who have traveled with you lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We change roles, we change our genders. So,
Mhm.
like your mother in this life could have been your brother in a previous life, but they all come in saying, we're going to help you out. And so, at some point in your life, we're going to abandon you because that's the issue that you're working on, right? So,
Right.
like for me, it was acceptance and approval. So, everybody in my life, I could win the Pulitzer Prize, and nobody would acknowledge it. But I asked them not to. I said, "Don't give me any, don't accept me totally. Don't approve of everything I'm doing." And why? Because I had to learn that acceptance and approval is from within and from
Uh-huh.
above, and that I didn't need outside validation. That was my lesson in this life. So everybody has a different lesson that they're working on, and it's just really absolutely beautiful, fascinating the way the universe works in order to help you to learn that lesson.
So in your research, because you love doing research,
I do.
and you've done quite a few past life regressions in your lifetime,
Yeah.
what would you say, like for certain medical conditions, like let's take being overweight.
Yeah.
What have you found out about that?
Many people that are overweight, there's several reasons. One is they may have starved in a previous life,
Uh-huh.
and so that subconsciously is kicking in and they can't get enough food. It could have been they made fun of somebody that was obese in a previous life, and now they're experiencing what it feels like to be in that body. Um, there's all kinds of reasons for it, but that's generally what I have found. Most of which is uh, that they'd starved in a previous lifetime, and so this is the result of this. It's a subconscious programming, that
Mhm.
you're trying to compensate for. Like Edgar Cayce talked about, he had somebody come to him for a reading who was blind,
Mhm.
and he told them, he says, "Well, in a prior lifetime, you were blinding your enemies with hot poker. And so now you're experiencing this. It's just a balance.
So like a heart condition that might be that you know, probably hurt so many people in your life and that type of thing, or I'm just
Yes.
curious because medical, I love medical and doing past life and doing medical to find out why somebody is experiencing what they're experiencing right now.
Yeah, well, I cover that in my book, Karma Can Be a Real Pain.
Uh-huh.
And, like I said, what I did with in that book is that I did do the regression is in there. The transcript of the regression is in there. So we know what the person's past life was. And then the soul writing is in there to give them some additional information. I had one man, for instance, he was complaining of arthritis, but it was only in his thumbs.
Oh,
He,
wow.
he went back to a past life in which he was a Confederate soldier in the
Mhm.
Civil War, and he would wield a sword and he would aim for the thumbs of the Union soldiers because he wanted to make sure he didn't want to kill them. He wanted to make sure that they could not hold a sword or a gun.
Oh.
In this life, that's where his arthritis is. I had another woman who had head to toe psoriasis and she wanted to know what the source was. She went back to a past life in the Old West. She was a call girl in the Old West. And when I asked her, what are your last thoughts at the moment of death? That's an important question, by the way, when I do a regression,
Uh-huh.
because that often sets up the next lifetime. So she said her last thoughts were, I don't want to be touched anymore. So she manifests a skin condition in this life in which nobody wants to touch her.
Wow.
So there's story after story after story in that book about the correlation between something that happened in a prior lifetime to what they're dealing with now. They could have had diabetes from various reasons or joint. I had a lot of people with joint problems, knees, feet. And so we went back. It's just there's just so many stories I can't even begin to tell you, but they're all chronicled in that book. I learn a lot when I do these research projects. You never know what you're going to see or explore. I had one woman who right at the end of that project, her husband called me. He said, I heard you're doing this project on physical karma, and would you see my wife? And I said, well, my project's over. I'm done with the research. He goes, oh, please. He said, she's having a terrible time. She's having night terrors.
Oh.
She was a 71-year-old psychiatric nurse, and she couldn't sleep because every night she'd have these terrors. She was convinced that she was in the Holocaust.
Oh.
And so I said, all right. So we did the regression, and she turns out she wasn't in the Holocaust, but she was around that time period, but earlier than that.
Uh-huh.
And she was living in England. She was a little girl, and she was living in poverty. Uh, she hardly had any clothes. She didn't have a blanket for her bed. She didn't have a coat, and she'd have to go out in the cold. So she was uh, abused, freezing, didn't have much to eat. Um, and so in her mind, she transferred that memory into the situation that she would have been in if she had been in the Holocaust, because it was the same things kind of going on. And but we found out that it wasn't, and I took her through that lifetime. It was in Bristol, England. I won't forget that. And after that session, she never had a night terror again. And her husband, when I had the book launch, it, the two of them came and they were in tears. And her husband said, I cannot tell you how we appreciate. She can sleep now peacefully. She hasn't had a night terror since. So the power, like I said earlier, the power of this form of healing, this transformational form of healing. Most people only need one session. It's not like traditional psychotherapy where you come again and again. Well, you can if you want to, but most people don't because they get what they need out of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and um, and then they live their life free of that karmic debt burden, and off they go. And working on the next thing on that list that they came in to work with. So it's just you don't even have to believe in it for it to work. I mean, it's just awesome, honestly.
That brings me to my next question. How do you know if the past life regression memories are real or if you're imagining them?
Well, what I tell my clients, because that's a question that comes up all the time, what I tell my clients is, now think about this. Would you sit and think up a story like the one you're telling me? Spend a couple of hours talking to me about it, and then pay me for the enjoyment of listening to you. No, no. Um, if there's emotion in the memory, I can't make you laugh. I cannot make you cry. I cannot make you do anything that you would normally do in a conscious state. So if you start to sob, I had one woman. She was inconsolable, and she cried through the whole thing, and I couldn't make her do that if I tried. So where is that coming from? You making something up, and you're going to feel it at such a deep level that grief was just pouring out of her. So that's a way of knowing whether it's real or not. So yeah, everybody asks that question. I assure them that, and then when they come out of the session, I'd say to them, "So do you think you made that up?" And they say, "Absolutely not. If I'm going to
Uh,
make a past life, it's not going to be that one."
so, what about somebody that's come to do a past life regression and they don't see anything but blackness? Do you
I
ever
had
have that?
that the other day. That doesn't happen very often, but I did have that happen the other day. Oftentimes it's because of them. They're not focusing. They're being too distracted. They're allowing outside forces to kind of get in the way. Um, they don't want to surrender. They don't want to let go. They want to be in
Hmm.
control. Or it could be that spirit doesn't feel that they're quite ready for this yet. Especially people that come to me and they're just dying to have this. I'm so excited. I've been wanting this forever, and I'm going to do it. And then they get nothing. And then I've had one who just burst into tears because she couldn't get any. I work with them a long time. I have 3 different scripts that I'll flip. I think, well, if you're not seeing anything this way, then how about if we try this? And if they get nothing, then I'll try it a third time. And if nothing after that, then I realize that there's no way that session is going to work. So I just encourage them to get some meditation tapes
Hmm.
to work with meditation, and get used to the idea of working with spirit, get used to the idea of letting go and allow
Right.
images to come to you from your soul outward. And so sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't, but it doesn't happen very often. I would say about 98% of the time it's success. I also tell people, if you're not seeing something, it's best for visual people, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
because I say to them, if you close your eyes and I say, see yourself walking into a forest, would you be able to do that? And they say, yes, I can do that. Then we're fine. Some people, I'll say, you know what? Use all of your senses. If you're feeling something intuitively, then
Hmm.
go with that. If you are hearing something, smelling something, touching something, go with that. So, sometimes we'll use the imagery of watching a movie, a movie that's been made about you in another time period. Some people can't even do that. So, um, but like I said, most people get something. Some people get very, very vivid memories, and they relay them to me with great detail. Other people, it's a little vague. You know, they might say, "I can't see this clearly." And so but I'll work with them because I can see what they're seeing as they're doing the regression. So it's almost like I'm this invisible presence over them. And
Mhm.
that enables me to see the bigger picture, and then I can ask them questions, move them along. When I ask what's the significant event, they may say something and then stop, and I'll say, well, what happens after that? And what do you do after that? And just keep it moving along until we get enough information, uh, you know, to understand what the issue is that they're working on.
Wow. I like that idea, but I also feel, some people when they go to have a past life regression might have so much fear about it too that something may not come up as well, right?
Yeah, that could be. It could be. That's why I try to really maintain a rapport with people. I want them to feel safe with me. I do use white light protection. I do say a prayer
Mhm.
of protection before we work together so that only the highest and best will come through for them. And I assure them of that and that they're safe. That's why having them in their own home when they're doing this, they could be lying on their own bed, they could be in their most comfortable chair. And I tell them at any point in time, you can open your eyes and walk out of the room. I mean, I can't, I'm not holding you there.
Mhm.
Some people get really deep and other people don't. So it just depends. But I don't spoon feed anybody. People keep asking me to do a reading. I said I don't do readings.
Right.
I will be your guide. The information is there. It's always been there, and you can get it yourself. You don't. This is something you're going to do. I'll just be your guide. I'll just be with you, kind of holding your hand through it. But you're going to be doing all the work. So that's why they call it, past life work. It's not. It's not for entertainment value at all. I only take cases of people who are serious about it and want the healing, uh, that comes with it. So I don't do it for entertainment purposes. I know some people come. A lot of people say, "I'm just curious,
Mhm.
thinking about it a long time," and I'll work with them. But if it's just for entertainment purposes, then I'm the wrong person to go to because I don't do that.
I got you. Have you ever had somebody do a past life regression and they state that they shouldn't have been here this lifetime?
Nope.
Nope.
In the 30 something years I've been doing this work, that's never happened. No.
Wow, I'm just curious because sometimes I feel like I took over somebody's life this time. I got shot up in Vietnam and I came back instantly within a month of getting shot up, and I don't think I was supposed to be here. And I've seen images of council people on the other side going, "We have to have a talk when you cross over."
Well, here's the thing. Anybody that's murdered, especially in a war situation or just
Mhm.
murdered in general, or a suicide, come back immediately
Okay.
because their lives were cut short. It's like dropping out of school. You didn't finish, you know. Now, are you saying you're a walk-in? That did you enter a baby
I
body
came in as a
before?
baby. I came
Okay,
in like a month. I got shot up in December and I was born in January.
that's totally possible. Absolutely, because you do come in right away. You know, there was a time, I don't know how long ago it was, because I lived through the Vietnam War. Um, Not too long ago, there was a resurgence of interest in tie-dye and bell bottoms and, a lot of stuff from the 60s. And I'm like,
Right?
what is this generation? Where are they coming up with? Why are they interested in the 60s? And I really do believe it was because a lot of our boys, and I don't know how many women were involved back then,
Uh-huh.
but their lives got cut short. They came back, and that's what they were interested. They were Where was their music, right? Where was their style of clothing that they loved? And so there became a whole generation that was interested in aspects of the life that they left behind in the 60s. So yeah, that I did know that a huge uh, surge of souls from that war re-entered. Uh,
Got you. That
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. In fact, two of my husbands that I married, both Marines.
Ah.
both, one was musically inclined, the other one was a medic in the Marine Corps, and the second one was in Vietnam that I married. And so, like, we had, and our life felt like we were together for a very long time, even though we were only together for 2 years before he passed away.
Mm.
So it was like a lifetime within a lifetime in
Yeah.
such a short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. That happens. That, especially with that happens to suicides too. And the thing
Wow.
with suicides is that it's you didn't finish the work that you were here to do, and the next time you come in, it's going to be harder. So finish it now if you have those thoughts. Uh, that's just the way the universe works. So uh, I don't have too many people with those suicidal tendencies or thoughts, but they're the ones that do. I just sort of counsel them into understanding that this isn't going to give them the kind of relief that they think it's going to give them, and it's better to work through it in the here and now, whatever issues you're dealing with, because they're all karmic issues.
Mhm.
All can be traced to another lifetime. And if you understand, sometimes people take on tremendous guilt for something they didn't even do, or that was not karmically theirs. They'll I had somebody the other day who um, thought that she was responsible for the entire village that got either killed or enslaved, and here it was somebody else that had given information to the enemy, and that enabled them to come in and destroy this village. And all this time, she's been laboring with the idea that it was her fault that this happened. And when we actually did the regression, found out that it wasn't. And when it was over, she told me she felt a lightness about her, and joyful and peaceful. So sometimes we labor with the idea that uh, a false idea, because we don't have all the facts. We don't have total memory of something. We know it's affecting us some way. We know that
Mhm.
there's a sense of guilt or remorse or something like that, but we don't know why. And past life regression helps to define that, helps you to see that for yourself. And that's why it's so important that people do the work themselves, that they go through it, rather than somebody saying, in your past life, you were Cleopatra.
Right. There's a
So
lot of Cleopatras out there, isn't
there are
there?
a lot of Cleopatras, there are a lot of Thomas Jeffersons, there are a lot of Napoleons. I've met quite a few of them.
I have too.
Yeah.
Dennis Lutz, are you familiar with him? He goes back and forth between Virginia and Florida. He's wanted to comment to your about the people that are dressing up in the bell bottoms and the tie dyes. He says they're called hipsters, and he goes he knows several that listen to 60s musics that are between 18 and 25 now.
Wow.
So
Hey, that's the best music. We had the best music, the best clothes. Didn't
yes.
we? I mean, come on.
I knew every word in the 70s. I was just a child, but every song that came on, I knew the words to. That was freaky for me.
Oh,
Very freaky because, yeah, my parents listened to it and stuff like that, but I knew words that they didn't know.
see, those are memory triggers, and that's one of the things we explore in my pre-life planning session that I do, which is basically life between lives.
Uh-huh.
And are you given any memory triggers when you're getting ready to come back to Earth? And that would be one of them for sure. Yeah,
Oh,
I was
so what
I was
is the life between lives?
well. It's what you do in the afterlife before you come into a physical body. So you're in a past life. You die in this lifetime, then you go into spirit.
Mhm.
Well, what do you do in spirit while you're there? You play pinochle or something? I don't know. So we explore what do you do when you're in spirit? What's it like to die? It's one of the questions. What is it like for your soul to leave your body and go to your home in spirit
Right.
for a while? Who's up there? Who sees you? Not necessarily up there, but are you greeted by a guide? Is there a welcome message? Is it like St. Peter at the pearly gates saying, "Hi, you go over here and you go over here," um, and working with the council of elders? These are the wise beings, ascended masters. They're like guidance counselors,
Right.
and they have your report card of all of your lifetime, so they know what classes you've passed, what classes you still have to take
Mm-hmm.
or repeat, and they help you design your next lifetime. So you make your list of karmic issues that you're going to work on. You have a list of karmic attributes, the positive things that you've accomplished that are yours for all time. You get to pick out your mother and father. I love that. I love to tell my children, you picked me. I'm sorry. Uh, what a privilege. And then members of your soul family, who's going to come with you? Why did you pick the body that you have? There's a lesson in that for you.
Right.
And memory triggers, which are like deja vu experiences that you have to remind you of a past life. Mine are heavy into 18th century American history. One of the reasons I love living in Virginia, because we just have all of that around me all the time. So then you plan your next life. You plan, you know, after you pick your parents, then members of your soul family come in and they go, "I'm going to come in as your grandmother, and I'm going to teach you unconditional love," or
Right.
"I'm gonna come in as your sister, and we're going to uh, learn conflict resolution," or something like that. So yeah, so it's a whole session unto itself. So then you come back into you come go to the exit portal in spirit. You've picked out your parents, and then you enter the womb of your mother, or the woman you chose to be your mother. And then you come, and of course you forget all about all of this. You don't have
Right.
a memory of any of it. um, Although children between the ages of 1 and 5 often have past life memories. Now, children's past lives is not my area of expertise, but there's a lot that's written about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have two grandchildren, ages 3 and 5, and I keep waiting for them to say something about their past lives, and I've got nothing. I thought, oh, that's a cosmic joke. The universe won't let me hear anything about my grandchildren's past lives. But but anyway, yeah. So you come in, and you start to these memory triggers will start to kick in,
Uh-huh.
and eventually, if you pay attention, it'll lead you to that lifetime that you're working on in this one.
So if people are experiencing deja vu or those little triggers like I just discussed for myself, we should seek out someone to do a past life regression to help us figure out what it is that we should be working on in this lifetime.
Well, that would be helpful. I mean,
Mhm.
you certainly, if you want to find out the origin of what these issues are, a past life regression is the best way to do it. Um, and so is soul writing, which is another thing that I teach. But the regression, I think, especially the one where you go between lives, because that's where you're planning. I call that the research I did for that book is called "I Did It to Myself Again." Because I found that the reason I did that book is because I had a lot of clients who would come to me and they would blame everybody for what their life is like now. Oh,
Mhm.
it's my husband's fault, or it's my child's fault, or it's my mother and father's. The parents get the brunt of the blame.
Mhm.
And then they don't realize that they actually designed their life to be the way it is. And it's nobody's fault but theirs. If you want to, it's not really fault. It's just planning. It's planning to make the most out of this lifetime, to learn the most you can on the earth, so that you're gaining all of this experience that you can only get on this planet. We're spiritual beings inhabiting a physical body, not the other way around. So we came here to learn. We came here to um, to go to school, to learn all about life in a physical body and on this beautiful planet of ours. Now, sometimes I have some people that come and they have a past life and it's very, very happy. no trauma, no chaos.
Wow.
Nothing goes wrong. They
Wow.
just are happy. They have a beautiful family. They never get sick. They just living the good life. And they're like, "What is this?" And I said, "This is your reward and your respite, because you may have had a very, very, very difficult previous lifetime, or
Uh-huh.
maybe going into a very, very difficult future lifetime. And so, in between, you can rest up if you choose to. Um, you know, we incarnate usually 50 to 200 years between lives, depends on how ambitious we are. You know the term old soul?
Yes.
There's no such thing as an old soul. Old souls to me are just slow learners. We were all created at the exact same time.
Right.
Read the creation story Edgar Cayce writes. We were all created at the same time. I think the term old soul comes from that some souls appear to be much wiser than others.
Right.
And I think it's because they've been on the earth longer. They've opted to come back sooner. And they've
Right.
gained experience, gained knowledge. And so even as a child, they appear to be a prodigy, right?
Mhm.
They know how to do that. Well, they brought it in with them. That was something they earned from before. So, so it's just a school. We're all equal. Uh, some of us have just been around a little bit longer because we're very ambitious or gluttons for punishment. I don't know which, but I know I love people who say to me, "I'm not coming back. This is my last lifetime," and I say, "Really? Are you sure? You have nothing else to learn, nothing else to do." Well, granted, there are some souls that do not need to come back. Uh,
Right.
some of them come back in service to others, and that's a beautiful thing, that they want to come back and help. But sometimes we go over to another planet, uh, but it's not the same as being on the earth. Edgar Cayce said anything that begins on the earth needs to be completed on the earth.
Right.
So this is our school, and we need to take good care of our school. And just for vacation purposes, if nothing else, if we want to have a beautiful life after this one, I don't know. I don't know where we're going. I'm not a soothsayer, so I don't know. But this is a gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful planet, and I really am grateful every day to be here.
Oh, you live in a beautiful part of the country. One of our listeners says, I thought your resting time was between lives, not a present life.
No, you're working between lives.
You're working.
You're working between lives. You're not just sitting around on a cloud. You do get some rest.
Mhm.
You have a spiritual home. In my research, people were telling me that they created their spiritual home to look a lot like the home they had left on Earth. Some people said they were in a cabin in the Alps. Other people said they were in a chalet of some sort. Other people said they were in like a Greek temple. But other people said that they just created their home on Earth, and they even brought they anything you can think of. When you're in spirit, you think something and it manifests.
Mhm.
And cool. Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you saw the movie with Robin Williams, What Dreams May Come.
I love that movie. The best movie.
It is,
Yes.
it is. But you know how his wife did that painting of that,
Uh-huh.
and that's where they ended up.
Yes.
That's
So
what that's what
beautiful.
it's like. That's true. That part is true of that movie. So so anyway, yeah, you do rest at times in spirit, but you're also working. You're planning your next. You're reviewing the previous lifetime. You go through a debriefing session with your guide. You ask any questions like, "Why did that happen?" or "That seemed like a waste of my time," or what. Those are the typical questions that people ask, and then you plan. You work with the council of elders, and you start to plan what your next lifetime is going to be about. But I'm saying that if you come to the earth, sometimes you earn uh, uh, an eventless life here on earth.
Mhm.
Uh, and so when those come up, I tell my clients, don't be disappointed. that's spirit's way of showing you that you can have that kind of a life again. That's if that's the goal. So you get a little taste of that. And it doesn't happen very often with clients that I have, but it does come up once in a while. And it's quite beautiful to see it.
So, can past life regression help heal family lineages?
What do you mean by lineages?
Like going back, like we're all you pick your soul family, right?
Right,
And they had their issues too because they chose to have those,
right.
and so forth and so on. And then is there, like, when you do a past life regression, can you go back and heal that past so that the
Yeah,
future people can't experience that or don't have to experience that?
right. That's the goal of the lifetime, is to take a look at those relationship issues. If you're working on them in this life, you'll go to the past life that they originated.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're having an issue with your mother in this life, chances are you had that same issue with her in the past, although she may not have been your mother then, but it's the
Right.
same soul, right?
Right.
We don't look the same lifetime after lifetime. And like I said, we're not always the same gender, but the essence of our soul remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
You could feel, you look at somebody and you just sense or something about them that's reminding you of somebody else, and they say, Shakespeare said, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they are, because your eyes remain the same. Everything else changes, but the eyes remain the same. And so, yeah, the whole purpose of the regression is to heal. First of all, to understand what happened, why it happened. So the regression is going to show you a lifetime in which you may have done something to somebody, or they may have done something to you. And then you sort of I'll ask you after the regression, one of the questions I ask you are, what do you have in common with your past life aspect, I call it? Uh, what parallels are there? What are the behavior patterns that are the same,
Mm-hmm.
that you can identify that? And then the other question is, what people from that life are in your life now, and why are they in your life now? So then you can identify, well, I think my mother in that lifetime is my husband in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say, well, why did he come back with you? Well, then you look at the relationship he had with the mother in the past life, and then you could see that the issues are the same. Yeah. Or sometimes they come in with you to be just very supportive of you. They don't always come in to challenge you. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they come in to support you and encourage you, and just be in your rah-rah section, and just love you unconditionally, so that you could go out and do the work that you need to do. So it's very complicated, and yet it's very simple.
Right.
And for each person, it's different. It's a different experience.
Do we pick the friends that we're going to hook up with too in this lifetime
Yeah,
as
they're
well?
part of your soul family, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Soulmates are not necessarily a love interest.
Right.
You know, your soulmate just says that this was a someone who was in your life before. So they're part of your soul, like your pod, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we change relationships. So you could have best friends now that were siblings in the previous lifetime. And people come in and out of your life for a reason. They
Mm-hmm.
don't always stay. So like a soul will come into your life. It'll make a profound difference in your life. Maybe it'll change your perspective on something. It'll lead you to a path that'll take you, down a particular road that you wouldn't have gone down had they not been in your life. So those people are all members of your soul family, and they've come in because their goal, they love you so much on a soul level. I'll never forget this. The very first day that I went to Unity Church here in Charlottesville was in March of 2009, and the minister was talking about radical forgiveness. And she said something that I knew already, but sometimes you hear something with new ears.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, that the souls that are in your life, they're coming in for a reason. They're coming in to help you in some way, to help your soul grow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it may not be pleasant, the experience you have with them. But if you keep in mind that they're doing it out of love for you, it helps you to forgive them. And it certainly helped me learn to forgive. Uh, when you think about it, what did I learn from that experience with that person? Boy, that person really hurt me deeply. That person caused a lot of damage in my life, but what did I learn from that? How did I come out of that? And am I a better person for having learned that than I was before? And then
Mhm.
if you look at it from that point of view, then you see that they loved you on such a level, on a soul level. Now they've got their own karma that they're dealing with. Okay, I'm not saying that all is forgiven,
Right.
forgotten rather, but it helps you to see them more in that light of someone that's come in to enable you to learn the lesson that you chose yourself to learn.
Um, you talked about soul writing too.
Yeah.
Can we touch a little bit about that? Because that kind of goes hand in hand with what you're doing, right?
Yes, it does. I first discovered this form of guided writing when I was a child, and I used it at various points in my life, not realizing what I was doing. And then I attended an A.R.E conference in Chicago. I think it was around 1990. And the speaker was talking about something called inspirational writing, which was something that Edgar Cayce talked about. So when I attended Atlantic University, and it was time to do my thesis, I chose to do it on inspirational writing, but I changed the name to soul writing because at that time, the term inspirational writing, if you look on Amazon, it'll take you to all the Christian genre books. And
Mhm.
the term automatic writing, which is the term that most people use, will show you all books on the occult. So I knew that what Casey had in mind was neither one of those. And
Mhm.
so I just came up with the name soul writing, and then I did my thesis on it. Soul writing is basically a written form of meditation. So if you think of prayer as you talking to God and meditation as God talking to you, this is you taking notes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like to think of it as a 24/7 phone home card that was put in our little backpack before we came to Earth, to the Earth School. And basically, you use it to ask spirit any question you want to ask. Any question. It's kind of like what Casey did, because Edgar Casey would wait for a question, then he would go to source, get the answer, and then bring it into the reading. He didn't just start to talk about any old subject off the top of his mind. He waited for a question. That's what this is. So you're asking spirit for guidance or answer a question of some sort, and you can ask anything. You can ask, and what I discovered was that I could use it with past life work, and so I have since added it to my regression work. People could choose between a traditional regression, which is just the regression itself, or they could choose to do the traditional regression with the soul writing. If they choose that, then at the end of the regression, while they're still in an altered state of consciousness, I give them the instructions on how to do the soul writing. And they have paper and pen in front of them. And, I discuss basically, what to do. And you can ask the backstory. You don't get everything in the course of an hour and a half or 2 hour regression. So the soul writing will fill in the blanks for you pretty much.
Mhm.
And while they're doing the writing, I'm also doing the writing. I'm asking my friends upstairs if they have a message that I could give to that person, and then I'll get a message and I'll share that with them. So it's a very powerful tool. You can use it for all kinds of things. Apply it to your life. You can use it to develop your psychic abilities, besides past life work, which is one of the big ones. You can actually have a conversation with your past life aspect using that form of writing. You could explore esoteric philosophies. You could get guidance on a specific topic. You use it for soul's growth. You could use it for psychoanalysis and healing. You can use it in various art forms. You could write poetry with it. You can compose music with it. The process is basically the same as it is for all of these creative outlets. But mostly, I teach it to use it for writing. So it's been a joy for me because it is very powerful, and people, especially people who don't normally write uh, and like that, when they get a message that's so profound, they're like, "Wow, who's doing this writing?" Well, you're doing the writing. It's just coming from above, coming
Hmm.
through your soul, out your down your arm, out your hand, and onto the paper. And you get information that you never would have gotten in a conscious state. And I also go through, when I teach it, all of the famous writers and composers that have used that process in their creative art forms. And it's so I wrote a whole book on soul writing, which is basically my thesis, and then the second book, Your Soul Remembers: Accessing Your Past Lives Through Soul Writing, is a kind of a follow up to that.
Yeah, I saw those on Amazon. So, does it teach you how to do the soul writing in the book?
It does, it does. Yeah, it gives you step by step instructions on um, what to do to get optimal. You know, how to set the room up, and um, a prayer protection is in there if you don't know one of your own. You know, adding that white light around you, putting yourself into like a white uh, bubble of light.
Hmm.
Uh, it's basically just going into an altered state like you would when you're going into meditation. But instead of the meditation, you know, where you're seeing things or experiencing things within that meditative state, the information is coming out on paper and in words. Uh, so you might get a phrase, or you might get a full sentence, or you might get paragraph after paragraph. It's stream of consciousness writing. So you don't bother to stop to cross your T's or dot your I's, or don't worry about punctuation or grammar. I know my teacher friends, this really bothers them. I tell them, I said, just let it come out on the paper, and when you transfer it to the computer, then you could fix it then. You can do it on the keyboard. The only problem with the keyboard is that if your eyes are halfway closed, if you shift over just a little bit, you
Yeah.
will get gobbledygook, you won't be able to read it. So I prefer to do it by hand. But instructions on how to do it, examples of ways to apply it to your life, are all in the book, the soul writing book. And then, like I said, the one specifically for past life usage is the second book, Your Soul Remembers.
I
And
got you.
also, the karma could be a real pain. We use soul writing for the healing aspect of that as well.
Now, do you use your dominant hand or a non-dominant hand for writing?
You use your dominant hand.
Okay.
Your handwriting should be the same. I have a whole comparative columns on, this is what soul writing is. This is what automatic writing is. They're different.
Uh-huh.
They're very different. Um,
Okay.
and there's sort of some warnings in there about the automatic writing because there have been cases of possession
Oh,
with it.
yeah,
So
we don't want that.
no, we don't want that. No, we don't want that at all. So that's why I'm on this crusade to let people know that automatic writing is a no-no. And but I think people just use the term because that's the term that they've always heard. So they don't.
Right.
But with automatic writing, you often don't. Your handwriting is different. You don't know what you're writing.
Mhm.
You lose control of your hand. And believe me, I have gotten cocky. I used to get when I first started doing this, and I thought, I don't need to say that prayer of protection. I don't need to surround myself with white light. I'm already there. I don't need to do it. And I got into trouble. Let me tell you, I could feel the energy shifting in my hand, and the
Uh-huh.
writing got really tiny and would go up at an angle. And then I felt like I wanted to shake it out of my hand because it was uh, uncomfortable. So I had to get some help with that. But and Hewlin Cayce, who's Edgar Cayce's son, wrote a book called Venture Inward, and he had some case histories in there of people that got into trouble with automatic writing and ended up going to the A.R.E in Virginia Beach to seek out help
Oh,
to
yeah.
get out of that situation. So soul writing is perfectly safe
Right.
as it puts all the safeguards in there. with the prayer and and I always, when I do a regression, I always say a prayer of protection, and I always surround myself and my client with white light so that nothing can get through that would be harmful in any way. So those are just, and I have all the steps in there, and I have all the ways you can apply it to your life. And if anybody wants, I do one-on-one lessons, and that's on my website. If you're interested in that, you can read about it, and then you can actually book a session right there if you want to pursue it.
Yeah, and we have your website posted in the description, so anybody's welcome to go there. And like she says, she does Zoom meetings for past life regression, so you can schedule an appointment with her if you guys click in your connections there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's an online calendar and everything, so
Okay.
they could pick a day and time that's convenient for them.
I got you. I wanted to talk to you about your book, The Edgar Cayce and the Unfulfilled Destiny of Thomas Jefferson Reborn. I had a guest on here not too long ago that talked about Thomas Jefferson in a book that she written. She didn't do the work on communicating about his past life, his life here on Earth, but you've written a book about that too, as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Edgar Cayce did a reading on a baby boy in 1936 when this baby was 2 days old.
Wow.
And Cayce said that this baby, the soul in that baby, was the reincarnation of Thomas Jefferson and Alexander the Great. He had two famous past lives. He gave him four past lives, but those were the two. This little boy, Cayce named him Thomas Jefferson. His last name was Davis, T.J. Davis. He's still alive, living here in Charlottesville. He's 85 now.
Wow.
Yeah. And Cayce in that reading said, this soul could do for the world what Thomas Jefferson did for this country. Imagine being 2 days old and being told that, right? Not that you'd remember it at 2 days old, but the people around you certainly remembered it.
Right.
So for the first 8.5 years of TJ's life, he lived with the Cayces on and off because TJ's aunt was Gladys Davis, who was Cayce's secretary. So he grew up in the Cayce household basically, and Cayce was grooming him for the work that was ahead of him. He would sit out on the pier, they'd go fishing, and Cayce would tell him all about reincarnation, about the law of karma, about how to read an aura, about the law of grace, the creation story. There's a picture of them. It's in the book too, of the two of them on the pier fishing, and here's this great mystic pouring all this information into this child. Well, as it turned out, TJ never did do what Cayce had predicted, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And unfortunately for TJ, a lot of the people who knew his reading were so disappointed that he didn't do the things that Cayce said, that he had a very difficult life. Uh,
Oh,
and people were very condescending toward him, and really, really pretty hateful, and always blamed him. Nobody asked the question, why didn't he accomplish those things?
mhm.
So the book follows that trajectory. It talks about his childhood and what was going on there, the predictions that Cayce's gave him reading after reading after reading, not a life reading, health readings. And he constantly told the parents, this is what you need to do for this little boy in order for him to accomplish the things he needs to accomplish. And they didn't do any of them.
Oh,
Imagine having instructions from a great mystic like Edgar Cayce and then not doing what he's suggesting you do.
right,
So Cayce died when TJ was 8.5 years old. He never got that second life reading that he was expecting when he was 13.
right.
He was kind of thrown from pillar to post, and he never did the things that Cayce said he could do. So my book goes, I spent 8 years researching his life. In the archives of the A.R.E, the Edgar Cayce Foundation has all of the files. I looked at all the letters that were being written by Cayce and others in that circle. And so I built a story around told the actual story of why, because it's based on free will. There were a lot of opportunities where if his soul could have gone on a certain path, but then his mother would make a decision and off he would go on a different trajectory. Now, the difference between him, there's a lot of Thomas Jeffersons out there, and I know that there's a book that the person who wrote it claims she's channeling, that he was being channeled.
Right. Yes.
And I challenge that, because how do you channel somebody who's in a physical body on the earth? You know,
Right.
when TJ was growing up, there were so many signs that he was the real deal. When he was 3 years old, he could recite the Declaration of Independence.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, when he was a freshman in high school, he had a history exam and he knew he couldn't answer it, so he wrote out the Declaration of Independence and the Statute for Religious Freedom in Virginia, word for word, and then signed about 8 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence on the paper, turned it into his teacher and said, "This is all I know about history. You can pass or fail me, whatever you want." And, they didn't know what to do with him. They didn't know what to make of it because he was sitting right there. They knew he didn't cheat. You know,
Wow.
so and there's a lot of other examples in the book about the Jefferson life, because everybody was looking at him for signs
Hmm.
that he had been Jefferson, and so I've chronicled all of that. I don't know that these other people who claim to be Jefferson can say that they had those kinds of experiences at that age. So that, and I also don't think that Cayce was ever wrong about any of the readings that he did. So I tend, and I know TJ. I have a picture of him in my book. He looks a lot like Jefferson. He was a really close friend of mine. I could tell you that he really was the real deal. So I don't believe in I don't believe that souls split and go into multiple bodies. I know that there is a whole group, a faction out there that believes that. I'm not one of them. I'm of the belief it's one soul to one body. And so people have used that as the excuse, the reason they think that they're Jefferson. Oh, I'm one aspect of Jefferson. I'm this aspect. Well, you know what? Then which one of you Jeffersons is working on the karma from having owned slaves? Which one of you is doing that? If you're only a strand of it, so some people say, well, I'm the strand with the idealistic views, I'm the one who, wrote the Declaration of Independence, and I'm here to work on global, peace and all this. I think, well, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you're doing that. So who's working on the karmic aspect of the slave owner? You're going to give that piece to this soul while you get this glorious piece. I don't buy into that. And I also don't think, I don't believe you can channel somebody that's in a physical body. So, I don't like to negate what anybody is doing, but that's a sore spot for me.
Ah,
As I've been working on this for so long, and I just, I have a hard time with that. So I do believe T.J. Davis was Jefferson. I have had conversations with him, and if you read the book, you'll see aspects of him that I think you'll relate to, and
right.
also the Alexander lifetime too, which he's not very proud of. He once told me, he said, "I don't know why they call him Alexander the Great." He said, "There's nothing great about him. All he did was go around killing people, conquering worlds." But interestingly, when TJ was in Europe, he followed the exact path that Alexander took. There's some interesting stories about the crossover with the Alexander lifetime, as well as some of the stories things that he saw when he was growing up in the Cayce household. He had a very enchanted childhood, in which he saw fairies, and Cayce created a playmate for him that wasn't real, uh,
Uh-huh.
and he saw Cayce levitate someone. He saw spirits coming into the room when Cayce would give a talk. There's just one story after the other. And he thought growing up that all the kids had that kind of a life. Well, he had a rude awakening when he started to go visit his friends in their homes. And he realized that not everybody lived like that. So it caused some problems for him, for sure, especially after Cayce was gone.
Mhm.
So he had a difficult life. He was a lost soul, really. Um, but I realized after I wrote the book that I think what Cayce was talking about didn't have anything to do with a global initiative or anything like that. I think when Cayce said he could do for the world what Jefferson did for this country, I think he was talking about sharing the Cayce teachings and the Cayce readings, because TJ said to me so many times, he said, Joanne, and the answers to all of humanity's questions are in those readings.
Mhm.
Would take the time to actually read and study them. And because when he was sitting out on the pier with Cayce, he didn't talk to them about Thomas Jefferson. He talked to them about, remember when we built the pyramids in Egypt? I mean, that's
Mhm.
the kind of conversations that they would have. So anyway, it was my first biography. It was really a labor of love. I had promised TJ Soul that I would do that when we were both in the between life stage. And
Right.
and I had a lot of challenges and obstacles to doing that book, because there were people that didn't really want me to write that book, and they let me know it, but I persevered. So I'd love to share that with people if you want to read an interesting story about the way that karma works, about
Yeah.
be somebody very famous in a past life, and then you can live in abject poverty, which is what he's doing right now in this life, and not accomplish anything comparatively to what he accomplished in the past. So it's just an interesting sketch of the way the soul's path and the choices that we make in any given lifetime because of free will that put us on a different trajectory.
So, I know you studied Edgar Cayce too, right? And being part of that foundation and all. Do you ever talk about coming back and giving us any kind of sign it's him or?
There are some people who believe that that's the case. There's a gentleman out there now that claims to be him, but nobody in the family acknowledges that. The A.R.E does not acknowledge that. So as far as we know, he's not back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he was, I mean, phenomenal. Didn't they have a thing out in Arizona or New Mexico for Edgar Cayce too, as well, out west?
What do you mean for Edgar Case?
I mean, I thought that he had some, he was strictly in Virginia, or did he live out west too as well? No, it was
He's
just
from he's from Kentucky.
oh, Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah, Hopkinsville, and they have a museum um, in Kentucky and
Oh,
different
okay.
places to visit that he yeah, and there was a clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that had to do with the health reading part of it, and they also had an A.R.E, another headquarters in Houston, but that has since closed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's Virginia Beach primarily right now.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. So he migrated from Kentucky to Virginia Beach area.
Yeah, he said that was really one of the safest places in terms of earth changes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm hoping that Charlottesville is covered by that. Yeah, yeah. People should come and visit the campus. It's beautiful. They have Edgar Cayce, there's a health center there with a spa. There's the library is second to none in terms of a metaphysical library. I love to go to that library, just get lost in those books because you can feel the energy of all that wisdom from all those books coming at you. They're back open again for in-person conferences, but they do a lot of conferences via Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Go on edgarcasey.org and you'll see all about it. You could become a member and get their magazine Venture Inward. And they sell books and tapes and uh, um, the remedies. The Cayce remedies are out there as well. Like I said, 12,000 of those 14,000 readings were health readings. And so a lot of the, I don't know, you wouldn't call it a recipe, but the formulation of the different remedies. They're still being sold. Bar,
Mm.
BAAR.com has the Cayce remedies if anybody's interested um, in looking into an alternative uh, healing. Uh, I use the remedies, my husband does. The glycothymoline, he heavily talked about in his readings, and that's been around well over 100 years. But there's all kinds of, for every conceivable condition, there's a remedy for it. From A to
Wow.
Z. Yeah, yeah. You can, if you're a member of A.R.E, by the way, you can go on the member site, and then you have access to all of those readings. They're all online. So you could type in if you have a chronic illness of some or disease of some kind, you can
Uh-huh.
type that in, and then those readings will come up for you. But there's a
Oh,
lot of books out there about Casey's readings and health guidelines and all of that. So if you're interested, there it's well worth looking into.
so you had written a book called "I Did It Myself Again," the new life between life case studies. Tell us a little bit about that book.
That book was about the afterlife, about what happens after we die. So I had another research project around that. Took those folks to the lifetime most impacting them today. So we did the regression, and then I took them through from that life through the death scene, and then into the afterlife. And the planning session for this life. So all those things that I had mentioned earlier about, picking out their parents and working with their primary guide and their soul family, working with a council of elders, deciding what is their soul's mission in this life, the memory triggers, the choice of body. We explored all of that. So it was a 3-hour session between the regression and the life, and then the pre-life planning session. And I still do those one-on-one with people. That's one of the options they have on my website. And so I gathered all that information together and then wrote about it in that book. I did. That's why I called it. I did it to myself again. I had done some reading about what happens in the afterlife. A lot of what I was reading was not gelling with the Cayce material, and so I was really curious about it. And someone said to me, "Well, if you're so curious about it, design your own research project." And that's what I ended up doing because I wanted to see, uh, you know, my goal was that if all of these people in my research project who are total strangers, they don't know each other, and they come in and they start telling me the same thing. Like, for instance, if I say, "What does it feel like to die?" and they all say basically the same thing, then I felt like, well, that's something I can share with people, and then maybe they won't be so afraid of death because actually it sounded, like a pleasant experience actually. So that was one of the questions that I asked. And so I wanted to see if there was any common themes here where people were seeing the exact same things or feeling the exact same things or what did they have in common? Because if so many people have that in common, then couldn't we sort of take it to the bank that that's the way it's going to be for us? I mean,
Hmm.
that's what I was thinking. So yeah, so that was another really fascinating research project and culminated in that book.
Wow, that is incredible. I've been noticing the photograph behind your head there. Is that a wolf in the background?
And that's fun.
Fine. Okay, I got you. Is that a spirit
See?
guide of yours?
Well, I had a past life. I had a Native American past life, and my name was Fawn. And
Oh,
I
wow.
happened to come across this picture, and when I saw her, I just fell in love with her, and I had to have her with me every day. So that's why.
I love
That's
it.
why. Thank you. Thank you.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I kept being drawn to it, and I wanted to know a little bit about it because
Hey,
usually when somebody has
I can only wish to have been that beautiful in a previous life, you know?
you and me both.
Well, there you go. You asked for that. Your last thoughts. Remember I said your last thoughts set up your next life. So I've got my whole body planned for the next life. I got to remember to think about that when I'm dying. I want to come back tall and blonde and beautiful and all that.
So the death part, like when people are dying, is it the same for people that are like on ventilators as it is for somebody that just doesn't, or is in the breath and just in the bed and takes one last breath? Or is there like trauma from being hooked up to a lot of medical equipment? You ever had that question
Well,
before?
most of them aren't hooked up to medical equipment because they're remembering a past life that was way before then.
Okay.
I haven't had any contemporary past, lives. Like very seldom do I have anybody that's in what we would call modern times. Like I said, some of them go back 1,000 years,
Oh yeah.
and I had one that went back to Atlantis, which I don't get very often. Um, but no, they all. And by the way, people who have a traumatic death,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had one who in this life is a lawyer, uh, and he went back to a past life in which he was a enslaved African girl in on a plantation in Savannah, Georgia.
Wow.
And she was very beautiful, and of course, the typical story of the plantation owner's son taking a liking to her, but she rejected him, and he decided to make an example of her. And he had a party. He invited all of the local plantation owners and their families and friends to come and watch as he whipped her to death.
Oh.
And the man that had been her said, that his soul left his body before physical death took place. And I'd heard that in my other research projects where I always thought about Joan of Arc, what a horrible death that was, but I was told she didn't experience that because her soul left her body before the body died. And I found that out over and over again in my own research. So that was comforting in a way. But most of them said it was a very peaceful process. They just slipped out of the soul left the body, and some of them lingered, most of them didn't.
Right.
And then they started their journey to the afterlife.
Wow. Wow. Time is flying
I
by.
see
I
that.
know.
I
We
see
only got
that.
about 3 minutes left. Where I know your books are on Amazon, but where would you like for people to purchase your books from? Do you
That's,
like to go
that's
to your
probably
website?
that's probably no. That's probably better to go on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like to send them to wherever, where, because all your books, even your Soul Remembers, like, I want to read that book for sure. That,
Thank
because all of them sound so very interesting. And you have been an absolute delight tonight being on
you.
here. You're,
I
you're,
enjoyed
you're
it.
very animated with your expressions, and I love your laugh. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed every moment of it.
So, is there anything you would like to say to our listeners before we close out the show?
Just keep an open mind, and if you feel as though, you've got some issues that you're dealing with that you can't explain, that they don't feel like they're from this time, this lifetime, there's no reason why you should feel that way, then consider a past life regression, because I think that you'll find it to be extremely healing and eye-opening. And like I said, you don't even have to believe in it for it to work. So just give it some thought, and if you read my books, you'll see what other people have experienced. They're just like you. They come from all walks of life, all ages, and it's just a wonderful way of connecting and knowing that we've been everybody and done everything. So just give that some thought.
All right, we sure will. And again, her website is posted in the description, and she will get back to you. She's great communicator. I've learned that already. And I just want to wish you many blessings, and I hope you stay busy until you don't want to be busy anymore, Joanne.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It energizes me. It really does. So I'm very grateful for it, and very humbled by it. So I feel like I'm doing what the reason I'm here, and that's what this is all about, right? So thank
Yes.
you very much. I appreciate being on your show and sharing this with your audience.
Oh, thank you, Joanne. All right. Well, everybody, we'll see you back here next Saturday night when I have a friend across the pond over in England. It's going to be on the show, and she's going to be talking about how to get through any kind of experience in your life. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Raising Vibration Radio. Have a good night, everyone.